That was the biggest yawn I've ever had. What is going on, guys? Welcome to this video. My name is Cameron and this is the review for Ultimate Spider-Man issue 90. There's a fly in my room. The issue's right there, just behind us. Hulk is holding it. I hope the light isn't like on the thing. I hope you can see it. I do have my comics wrapped in, I have like regular comic book boards, but the bags are actually Mylar bags, so they're like extra shiny. So yeah, I hope the lights don't reflect off it too much, but yeah, this is the review for Ultimate Spider-Man issue 90, and it's awesome because we finally get to see Spider-Man have the fight with the Vulture, who we got introduced to at the end of the previous issue. And so speaking of the previous issue, what actually happened in it? Well, we saw Spider-Man being interrogated for the entire issue by obviously Silver Sable and her Wolfpack squad, as well as Mr. Roxxon himself. And the best part about that was that Spider-Man wasn't actually being interrogated. Mr. Roxxon just wanted to speak to Spider-Man, mainly because Spider-Man has been stopping villains from attacking Roxxon unintentionally, and Mr. Roxxon actually thought that Spider-Man was like some secret guardian of Roxxon, like he thought he was helping him and all this crazy stuff. And so Spider-Man's been thrown into this situation where the Vulture started attacking. Spider-Man's like there with Silver Sable, and the best part of the entire issue is that Spider-Man had his fingerprints scanned and it protected him, and the bad guys basically figured out that Spider-Man is under the protection of the Shield and the Ultimates, and they got the heck out of there, and it was just awesome to see that unfold. And so going into this Ultimate Spider-Man issue 90 with the events that happened in the previous issue, we're going to see them unfold further, especially with Shield, Roxxon, Silver Sable, and especially the Vulture. So I can't wait, and I'm sure you guys can't wait either. So without any further ado, let's get into this review for Ultimate Spider-Man issue 90. It's going to be awesome. Let's go. Alright, so opening up the issue and pretty much starting from where the previous issue left off, with Vulture revealing himself in the Ultimate Universe. Spider-Man and Vulture fighting in midair right now. And I don't know about you guys, but have you noticed that whenever we see aerial combat in these Spider-Man comics, the artwork is always on point, with Spider-Man swinging and then obviously the villain in the same panel as well. It's just pure awesomeness, and it's no exception here with the Vulture and Spider-Man fighting each other. And I just love the jokes that Spider-Man's throwing out there, and probably one of my favourite jokes of the entire series was when Spider-Man just said then about the Vulture going to take a poop on a statue. Like, that was, you know, like every other bird. Like, it was just so awesome to see something like that. And as I've already said, one of my favourite jokes of the entire series. So anyway, moving on throughout the comic, you can see that this issue features Tony Stark, also known as Iron Man, stood next to Nick Fury at S.H.I.E.L.D., and it's nice to have him there as well, because if you remember, he's part of the Ultimates, and Peter Parker hasn't really gotten to know Iron Man just yet. But it's nice to see that he's being involved and he's kind of making his way into these Ultimate Spider-Man comics a little bit more as the series goes on. Now, I've spoken about it before, and it's actually quite strange, but some of you guys didn't actually believe me when I said this, but the Vulture in the Ultimate Universe is not Adrian Toomes. It's someone that used to work for S.H.I.E.L.D., and he's called Blackie Drago. So yes, it's not Adrian Toomes as the Vulture, it's a completely different character entirely. But he does kind of look like Adrian Toomes, so I'll give you that. Now, as you can see, Silver Sable has stayed behind to try and take down the Vulture, taking multiple shots at him, and she's not doing a very good job. But I think one of the reasons why she stayed behind is, one, not only did Vulture just try and nearly kill her, but there is the potential that Silver Sable doesn't necessarily want any witnesses after seeing that she's involved with this certain situation, and so she's trying to eliminate the witness. Something that I was very fond of about Silver Sable as well was the fact that she knows that the Vulture isn't part of S.H.I.E.L.D., because obviously S.H.I.E.L.D. do stuff in stealthier ways, like they don't just send someone to blow up half a building. So it was nice to see that Silver Sable still had her head screwed on, and she sort of knows her enemies and stuff like that, so that was awesome to see. And overall, I think that Silver Sable is a badass character, and it's awesome to be able to just understand more about why she is the way she is, and you kind of feel a little bit more personally attached to Silver Sable, just because you know that she's not a cold-hearted killer, even though she kind of is, but you know the reasons why, etc. So if she actually died right now, it would actually have some sort of impact on you if she was killed. That doesn't happen, but you know, I'm just kind of saying if it did happen, you would feel pretty emotional about it. Anyway, so moving on throughout the issue, you can see that Mr. Roxxon has received a mysterious phone call off the person who's actually sent the Vulture to kill him, and he's currently on the phone to him right now. S.H.I.E.L.D. are tracking this caller's location, and just by going off the phone call and like the sort of the tone of the voice that you're imagining that this person's talking in, you can sense that this is a personal vendetta against Mr. Roxxon, as almost as if Mr. Roxxon has fired this person or something along those lines. And the way that you can tell this is just because he doesn't want Mr. Roxxon to be killed like in a simple way. He wants to embarrass him first. He wants to hear him crying on the phone. It just seems like a really personal vendetta. And to be quite honest, when I was first reading this issue, I was really surprised that this person took the risk of almost revealing himself by being careless enough to phone Mr. Roxxon in the middle of this situation. But obviously you guys have seen plenty of movies, and so have I. When the villain actually phones up like this, it's because they can't help it. They just have to sort of connect themselves proudly to let the people know that it is indeed them that is causing this situation, and it's all about ego, and it's brilliant. Now, as you can see back there, Spider-Man saved the Vulture, Mr. Roxxon escaped, and then S.H.I.E.L.D. triangulated the caller's position, and Iron Man and Nick Fury went after this person. And then it's revealed, in case any of you guys don't recognize this person, this is the Tinkerer of the Ultimate Universe. This is the villain, the genius, who creates weapons for the bad guys. Now, as you can see, Nick Fury has discovered this character, done some research, and knows that he can create crazy things, and he's actually making him work for S.H.I.E.L.D. now, creating weapons for S.H.I.E.L.D. and stuff like that. And I just love that really sinister look in Nick Fury's eye as he looks down on the Tinkerer, and you can just tell that Nick Fury has all the power, and he's looking forward to what the Tinkerer's weapons can do for S.H.I.E.L.D. in terms of stopping global annihilation and all that craziness that S.H.I.E.L.D. has to deal with. It could lead to some interesting situations, especially with that weapon known as the Slayer. Now, I can't really remember if that gets brought up in this Ultimate Spider-Man series or whether it got brought up in another comic series from the Ultimate Universe. We'll have to wait and see if that Slayer turns up again in the future issues. But now onto the final page of Ultimate Spider-Man issue 90. We discover that when Spider-Man visited Flash Thompson actually used that and got a movie for it and everything like that. So now there is a movie of Flash Thompson shouting at Spider-Man for entering his house, etc. And of course, Spider-Man gets none of it. Wolverine and the X-Men are in hysterics over it. And then when Peter Parker goes to school, you've got Flash Thompson in the background making fun of it, etc. It's just not going very well for Peter Parker right now. But guys, that is the end of this issue. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for listening and hopefully reading. So that is where the issue ends with Spider-Man, or should I say Peter Parker. Obviously, nothing going right for him again, with Flash Thompson actually having like a bit of a movie turn into it where Spider-Man was in Flash Thompson's room, and again Spider-Man is being made a mockery of because Flash Thompson was made out to be the guy that was actually insulting Spider-Man. And so I think it's confirmed, because I did actually think that Flash Thompson was a fan of Spider-Man, but by the looks of it, he's just not bothered. He insults Spider-Man, he's actually called him names, he says that he smells, and just, well, that's just the Parker look again. Like, nothing's going right for Peter Parker as Spider-Man, but at least Spider-Man didn't die. So yeah, going into that Vulture fight with Spider-Man and the Vulture and all that crazy stuff, it was awesome to see that Spider-Man, I don't know why, but his jokes were just really on point in this issue, especially with the part where Vulture was flying away, and Spider-Man assumed that Vulture was flying away to poop on a statue, just like normal birds do. And I thought that was hilarious the way that played out, especially with Spider-Man coming up with something like that. It was awesome. Mr. Roxxon webbed onto the Roxxon sign, I believe, if I remember correctly, and he was gone at the end. So obviously he's been cut out by somebody, or he's cut himself out and he escaped. And as we saw at the end of the issue, Silver Sable actually visited Mr. Roxxon, and she was convinced that nobody knew who she was, in terms of she didn't want Mr. Roxxon saying her name to S.H.I.E.L.D. or the FBI, etc. And one of the best parts about this is that Nick Fury actually acknowledges that Silver Sable exists. Like, he actually says her name, Silver Sable, but Silver Sable doesn't know that S.H.I.E.L.D. knows this. Like, she's kind of none the wiser, whereas S.H.I.E.L.D. actually just hasn't done anything about her yet. So that's just another really cool thing about S.H.I.E.L.D. being made out to be the badasses of the Ultimate Universe. It's amazing. Something that was very surprising in the issue was that the issue actually featured Tony Stark, also known as Iron Man, in the comic, just kind of there in the background, stood next to Nick Fury, and then we saw him in his Iron Man armor towards the end of the issue when they found the Tinkerer. And of course, we know that the Tinkerer is that guy that makes like all the inventions for all of the villains in the comics and everything like that. So we've finally been introduced to not only the Tinkerer, but also the Vulture in the Ultimate Universe. So we're getting introduced to quite a decent amount of characters, and of course we've already been introduced to Green Goblin, the Vulture, the Tinkerer. That just means that sooner or later, we're going to see the Sinister Six. So there's so many villains that still need to be introduced into Ultimate Spider-Man comics, and we are 90 issues in, so we're just over halfway through the series, and it's still getting good. At the end of the issue, we also got Kitty Pryde on the phone to Peter Parker. Obviously, we know they are dating now, and it was so nice just to see them together again. Like, I can't actually wait for them to be together again, you know, just kind of hanging out, like dating and just being like all relationshipy and stuff. It's really nice to see, and I actually think Spider-Man and Kitty Pryde superhero together in the next issue, if I remember correctly, so that's going to be interesting to see if that does indeed happen again. But moving on, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Roxxon in the future of these comics, especially with the Vulture and all those other crazy villains that are possibly going to get introduced soon, and of course with that whole Shield and Nick Fury now working with the Tinkerer to create inventions, and we also had that Slayer at the end. I actually can't remember what that is, but I'm pretty sure it gets used in not the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, but maybe some of the other Ultimate comics, like back when the Fantastic Four of the Ultimate Universe started a comic series, or Iron Man of the Ultimate Universe, or something like that. I don't know, I can't remember. But yeah, let me know what you thought in the comment section below about this issue. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button on this video. I'm going to give this issue an 8 out of 10. I gave the previous issue a 9 out of 10, but of course this issue had a bit more action and a bit more going for it. But the reason why I gave the previous issue a 9 out of 10 was because hardly anything happened in it, but it was still a really good issue, whereas this issue had a bit more action, it had a bit more going on, and so it just wasn't as simple. So I'd give it an 8.5, but I'll stick to an 8 out of 10 for now. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this issue. I hope you let me know in the comments below what you thought about this issue. Hit the subscribe button, and I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later.